that resource is to empower the prosperity we talk about for our young people. So that in 30 years' time, people look back and say, there was a turning. We turned it, and we were part of owning that turning. Take ownership of it.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, leader. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity for me to me follow young Dems, youth wing blow big party, Somaliland Democratic Party. I think it's really important for him to this conversation. He talk about him the issues where affect him na young people of country. It's really important for him to start him conversation and talk about him the issues for young people. Save think too. And make him a judgment blotter and opinion blotter, what by me come and talk about him and share him. Especially issues that affect him, every young people blame me, and also country as a whole. Yeah.
Good morning, leader. First question number, for ask him. As you say, Somaliland is a fully youthful nation. 70% of population is youth here, and so. With this big, youth population, how with him vision that you got him, how you look believe for imisave tenim is for youthfulness into a big driving force for development lo country blame.
Thank you. Hemi ogata bar of important thing where hemi strike at the heart of what government must be and must do. So firstly, a government which is truly of the people, he must recognize him that people, 70% of them, young here. This fella important demographics. Now, just common sense no more, meaning that if 70% of people are under the age of 30, that means for another 2 generations, that demographic by him remain roughly the same. Yeah? By him come down slightly, but by him roughly about the same. So in other words, in 20 years' time, population by him hover around 1 million people. And of that million, about 600 to 700,000 of those, which is total population this time, but in 20 years' time, that would be the demographic, the population of young people. So in part of a big potential. Eh? Now, of course, government, we always, various leaders of government, I talk about youth, or describe him youth also one for time bomb. This one, very negative, but him betraying the fact that Oget no got a vision for youth, and Oget look him youth also. You give him soccer ball, make him what BBC lo him, or you give him music instrument for BBC lo him. Na youth policy blo ket. Give him something, make him what BBC lo him. Oget no kwaso, Oget no marwan, Oget no make trouble. But that is the wrong way for government for addressing such a huge bulge in our population demographics. Yumi, Solomons Democratic Party, think blow Yumi lo youth him different. Yumi look him this for 70%, also one fella opportunity of many opportunities. And to see those opportunities, we need to be strategic. Now, of course, you must break him down to this fellow 70%. 70%, some fellow, a good, probably a little bit over half of him inside law school system. From baby, go Kasim, Form 6. So education policy, believe must be robust. And also, beautiful save. Education policy, believe by him, focus on STEM. STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. No meaning you may ignore him English and Bible studies and no more. You may not ignore him, but focus blumi lo STEM. Why now we focus lo STEM? So that from primary school, go kasim end lo secondary, or get picking really strong in mathematics and sciences. Prepare him for the technical vocational training, skills training on international level, where Yumi must bring him into our domestic system, so that they become productive workforce over the next 30 years. And that workforce will be, our economy over the next 30 years will be in manufacturing and processing. Yumi processing most of our agriculture. By Yumi like agriculture produce where go out lo exports below Yumi, it must be minimum 60% processed. So him value add lo Solomon Islands, plus him create him jobs lo Solomon Islands. Him also. Same with in fish. We're sending whole fish to Bangkok and to Tokyo at the moment. That economy, no any whole fish go out. Every fish must be processed in country, creating the jobs for our people here and at the same time adding value. Because you may not like send any more logs overseas. By logging him bar of small for meeting domestic need, blue you mean no more. But by you stop him because him degrade him environment, blue you mean. So education is a critical part of our youth policy, but education that empowers, inspires, and also provoke him creativity. This one is important to me. Every time me drive past law immigration and me look at young people me wait for passports. Tuvala emotion now me feel him. One, me sorry that got long line and also, but the other me look him lo Facebook it or hope What hope for bagaram waka and in Australia dollar bagot wakem house blogata buy him taxi or do him something for whatsoever. They will stand on their own feet. We want to give them that sense of hope without having to go to Australia or New Zealand. We want to give them that hope right here in Solomon Islands. We want to give them that hope right in their own customary land where have no need to be acquired by government. And so both education and economic policy will focus on that youth bulge, making that youth bulge the wonderful opportunity that is to be realized in productivity, economic productivity. The other aspect to it, and I know in your involvement with IMYEXI that you've been, this is one of the challenges you've been trying to address with help from Australia. But we need to develop an ecosystem where we identify young talent in business, say for example, and then we nurture him that talent through financing, management training, also, yeah? So that then young man we like for doing business here, man no garam selling here, him no garam property yet, him cannot go to bank here. So all of those things are challenges, perhaps even risks in a startup business that ought to be mitigated. So we want to create an ecosystem around that where we remove them or reduce him, mitigate him now get challenges here, so that we encourage more and more young people stand on their own feet, try something. He might fail, and in some ways we want them to fail initially because then they learn and they pick up more and then go more, and also these are, I think, important initiatives going forward. We have to engage productively this fella youth inside the population where I'm so much more than any other age category.
Thank you, leader. Me understanding that innovation and technology come up strong too, and more young people lot engage law, technology and innovation. What na plan blue for incorporating innovation and technology for plan blue for the young people?
So what we want to do is time you meet government, people willing and God willing, after election, by you hold them one for a summit. There'll be two summits. One will be an economic summit where youth must involve him. And then there will also be a youth summit where not just youth also. There'll be some old man also me too by Kamblohem. And we're going to invite some experts from leading technology countries. We've got partners below me fellas sound them a few out finish and are willing to come and inspire our own youth. Because part of that STEM focus in education will be on technology. so that our youth can aspire to technology and creative space, disruptive technology, information technology. So that's going to be the economy we talk about for the next 30 years. It won't just be manufacturing and processing, but it will also be an information economy. Young people no more mind open, mi follow all money, no mat button for yellow, mi variety no more. So these are opportunities that this economy, this country cannot benefit from unless you may engage in the young people. But if you meet lo young people, hey, give him go rugby ball, give him go soccer ball, no more go volleyball, or give him go basketball, or good something too, sport too, and well, important part of the economy. But if we're giving it to them just to engage them and make them more busy, but are not being productively employed, then we are squandering wonderful opportunities.
Yeah, me understand him during time due with him school government. If all come up with him free education policy, if you take him new government, but you still continue with him free education policy.
Yeah, at the time me Minister of Education and me fella implement him this fella fee-free education. It was a failure. It was a terrible failure. Of course, time me fella start him, me look for him by him worker. But then, as you know, schools come up with him any kind of fee more go something. I think him double up, so him no more, him even worse. So now looking back, we know clearly the evidence is that fella policy him failed. And government since that time, or the current policy. But as we know, if picking you no pay fee, or parents or guardian no pay fee, by picking no go school. The test of that policy is if picking no pay fee, by picking out from classroom, that's the test. And right now, if picking no pay fee, by him out from class. Yeah. So this for policy, but you may change him more. You may like him through one now, fee free, through free education now, you may like him. Where picnic must not be deprived of classroom time because parent knows afford him fee. Now, as you know, the recently passed education bill were now an act of Parliament. Make him compulsory education. So picnic him 6 years of age and above, him must go to classroom now. You parent or guardian cannot keep him in the house. If you keep him in the house, then about warning law, if no more, then about take him law court, then you fine or maybe even person. However, government him no make him clear, but if daddy him no sa pay him school fee, him no more reason picking no go school, by him how because by school him still free it for him out in picking from classroom. So you may policy blame me, you may go a little bit beyond that. Not a little bit more, you may go beyond that and say no more. Picnic must stay inside classroom. Education is a public good. Him say road you may dig him public good. You may ever need him road for go him. You may need him safe seas, navigation equipment. These are public goods. So education is a social good, is a public good, and therefore it must be delivered to everybody in the population. And education road that for one for picnic. Hemi not only important lo him and parents blame, him important for all of us that picnic is educated, so that hemi engage inside long society meaningfully and in the economy productively. So because of that public good, you may like him every picnic to be engaged productively in the economy. It is therefore in all of our interest that our government, representing all of us, make sure that picnic is not deprived of one day even of school classroom. So that's our policy. So what does that mean for Keta parents? If parent him not give him development fee or him no go waka and also by problem blo parent and school but picninia now no punish because of failure blo parent. There will be ways to address parent were lazy or parent were unable or unwilling for him go wakalo school or do him development fee or some parent contribution also. But that failure must not punish him picnic him, which seems to be current government policy where Education Act new one enforce him. But you may change him this one. We want all Solomon Islander children in classroom every single day as long as they are able. If we get sick, of course.
Honourable Wale, one of the challenges where him, so I'm looking at discussion every day and him affecting me too, ordinary Solomon Islander is healthcare blame. If we talk low side low aspect of young people, mental health. Staka young people this time what affected low mental health and support for young people for mental health hem no really staka low country blame. Information regarding supporting other local organization existing mechanism. What na plan blow you and party if you take him government for mental health?
Yeah, so basics things first. At the moment, as you quite rightly point him out, okay, the resources blow me for addressing mental health issues and very, very thin. I mean, I think maybe we have one or perhaps two qualified psychiatrists, for example. I'm not sure how many psychologists we have, but not many. So the first thing is we want to offer more scholarships for training for counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and then to strengthen existing institutions. Firstly, schools, because a lot of young people are in the school system. Secondly, in the churches, because a lot of young people are in the churches. And thirdly, in hospitals. And then you look after that, the children that are, or young people that are outside of the school system and outside of churches. Then we would see, well, what institutions are best platforms for you, misabe, putumot hosting. Okay, so facilities also. So it might take a little bit of time, but we must have a plan to progressively train and resource these platforms so that Ogetsabe address him. This one, Hemi, not only low young people, but right throughout our population. But of course, it is particularly acute in the young population because of this lack of hope, this hopelessness. You know, of 12 to 15,000 picnic come out each year from our school system. Or get lucky if 1,500 get jobs in the entire economy, full economy now. So you're talking about, if it's 15,000, you're talking about 13,500 picnic where they are hopeless. Now, of that 13,500 we're not getting jobs, another 2,000 might get job spaces in TVET, APTC, SINU. So we're still above 10,000 where we get hopeless. Even those who go to TVET and go to SINU, we get struggle by no garem fee to. It's a anxiety-filled life for young people. And you look to the future, and the future, not me like him, but how am I going to get there? Those are anxious thoughts for young people. That's where government must come in. And part of this fellow free education policy, believe me, this is not a promise, this is an aspiration. We want to make education free from Kindi go Kasim year 12, which is Form 6. But we also aspire to make it free right through SINU and TVET. It's an aspiration, not a promise, because of monetary resources. Now that's why economy must change. Yeah? This current economy where we cut them three, hold them go side, put them ship, send them to China, he must stop. That economy now make them everything expensive. Education him no good, healthcare him so bad. And that's not the economy we want. The economy of the next 30 years will be so robust, resilient, and sustainable that we will be able to afford free education for an entire 25 years, which is a generation of Solomon Islanders. That's our vision. We want every picnic to go right through to a university, Sinu, and technical vocational education training centers, believe me.
As you aware, like with the Pacific Games, you may get state-of-the-art facilities right now, and everyone into sports. But also the trend from past this time, everyone in engage with sport go no look any good something lem no mas samal go waka, yeah. So some sustainability for making sport and become of income job for the young people blame no ma. So what na vision believe for that one?
Yeah, this will be one for log topics me for like for raising this for youth summit. Is to explore and live in young people seleva all keta totok. We want to invite some fala lol keta famous sports people of Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, rugby and all areas also, and also maybe soccer and other areas of sports for come talk about experiences blo keta, and that will then inform government policy or therefore how no by you misave nurture him this talent. So right now I have to be honest, him no baro clear good how no by me approach him this one, but the desire is there that sports represents a huge area of potential for our economy, but also for our society. And it's an area where sports here, once you go you him 30 years old, you start go down the side of sports na. And so it's an area where really youth involvement him. And so we want to hear from a lot of young people. Kind blow you me where man him 40, but him go lo Pacific game I'm one by no winning in medal. I know we go compete with him 20-year-old and 25-year-old. So that's going to be a topic for this youth summit. The youth summit will be addressing a number of key areas, and this will be an area you will no must take charge of him. You're engaging with youth every day, youth issues, and you need to think about mental health and health more generally. How now we may addressing the youth population, reproductive health, family health, every issue here, but health more generally, mental health being an important part of them. And then skills training is going to be an important part of that. And then entrepreneurship, business, and ecosystem to support that is going to be another sector. Component of youth summit here. And then, of course, sports. Important. And you guys must think some more about them, set in stone, that we don't leave gaps. Because we want to invite some experts in these areas from other countries too, for helping me craft a much more dynamic, but also a hands-on direction in addressing youth challenges. You mean like wakem policy lo buka denem stop lo self nothing.
If you drive from White River to Henderson, I think leader imi say that Honiara hambar overpopulated lo young people na. But if you drive from White River to Henderson, miva sidan discuss over day and talk about existing youth hubs, a library, and sadly only one for public library name you garam lo Honiara. Imi garam one for youth hub noma. And White River to Honiara you looking pubs, clubs. Leader otakata place without him library and without him ota youth innovation hub, when young people were investing ideas blota. Young people always see down low market stall, always talk about the idea, but those space na bahay make come to reality. But given that immigrant pubs, clubs, place of drinks, stakawin youth hub, stakawin library, what na you say about that one? What na by you mean it for creating more space like this way, for making more idea of young people. There are good ideas in the market stalls, market house where young people talk about him. There are young people where look and learn no side technology, side IT, side for creativity things.
Yeah, this one very important. A few years ago, me go visit Seoul, Korea, and I take me na one for space also. Me big high-rise building, but the first two ground and first two floors, so 3 floors here. Also safe space for young people for come. And just open space, cafeteria, you go buy coffee or a little bit sandwich or something, then you group to trival your story about ideas, blue. If any idea, any good one, but you go test him too, idea. There's people already there where you go test him too, idea, what idea blue, you pie in the sky idea by him never work. Idea. I think by waka, then by connecting you go businesses that already exist or finance institutions or some of these nurture type further hubs more where nurturing business. So we must get to that stage. We must get to that stage, and I think this is where the National Youth Congress needs to be broadened a little bit. Right now, the National Youth Congress, ting blow you meal or all man first time lo me too, is youth For golo church, for ring guitar, for sing no more also. Make him no make trouble also. You make him more busy. Some same idea to National Youth Congress at a national level. But we need to move beyond that. Times have changed, and youth represents a wonderful opportunity. And to harness that potential, you must create in these spaces. But space nothing, empty building nothing. Spaces where they can come and then connect with each other and connect to where potential can then be further nurtured more or give him some direction to him, so that him not just a fantasy idea in the sky, but him something where him save waka and can be bankable. And bankable meaning no more that if you took it to a traditional bank, the bank would look at it, man, brilliant proposal. Only problem is got him security, got him equity. Because you young man, got him selling it. But for those two things, the idea itself, brilliant idea. That's what we want. We want youth to come up with brilliant ideas. They're bankable apart from these two things. And then government step in and say, okay, we connect you. Who knows? Submit him towards something for reducing risk here. That's where we want to get to.
Me understanding that currently National Youth Congress and youth, what part lo one from ministry with him, women and children's no. And I understand that ministry is the least ministry with him budgetary support. Look blue, if you take him government, is there any way that you have him own ministry or own setup blokata and own budgetary support?
Yeah, so firstly, and at this stage, thinking no more, because we want the youth summit to engage with this question. Time you me inherit him government, by you me not change him at that full ministry. Youth policy blue me him cut across a number of ministries, him cut across commerce in terms of YEXI or having a hub to support business ideas for young people. It cut across education and training. By education, you may split him. Higher education and science, why go different. And then basic education remains education. But by him, mostly by addressing young people. And then, of course, Ministry of Youth. Now, what we want to do, for example, even in MID, much of MID this time, the contractors and how I'm engaged within private sector, that ministry here. Big people now. We want to see how young people can engage. That's where a lot of need is, for example. And a lot of jobs are going to be created there when we do it right. You mean Wakem road or bridge, you mean no Wakem something where time rain no more whole come back. You mean like Wakem something where I'm stop for another good 50 years life cycle. But we want youth to be involved because we want young people have another 60, 70 years in their lives. They need to be involved and retain those skills for the long term. Because by Ival now stop here. So it cuts right across, but in the youth summit, what we want to do is for you to make the case, young people to make the case, Mifal like a ministry, blow Mifal Seleva now, away from every narrow responsibilities lo current ministry where including everyone. You will have to make a persuasive case. Why should that be? Make the argument. The other thinking someone was sharing with me the other day in some kind of policy discussion on this matter is whether the National Youth Congress should be reformed and be empowered so that ministry remains what it is, but ministry itself does very little by way of youth. Youth Congress na him take him on and him outside of government formally, so that government no overbearing lo him, no politicize him, no step lo him, no do him something. Once youth start for active, bagot politician like for look lo him to something by threatening me, no good na me lose lo election kaya niya. So this, yeah. So actually one fella young lady now me suggest him no think him that youth issues and youth policy should be driven from a ministry. If you do him also, they will always make sure youth never gets up, because if you get up, they may be a threat to the politicians. So that's also a thought that needs, to be considered seriously.
With him, current situation blame this time, most of the young people feel that voice blotter him not heard. Me understanding that the MPC, you've already voted for the election now, but there are times that young people need to be part of the budget process, major decision making, like the recent one, extension of life of parliament, 80 other policies, universities, youth student union really need to be part of the discussions as well. What now opinion blue this time, speaking as someone from university, speaking as someone that talk to young people, we feel that voice blow for him no head low. All the major decisions and the critical one that affect him country blame me.
This one him true. Me admit him. Me too look clear on this one that young people are taken for granted. And me fala ogata older people, we assume we know what is best for you. So we make the decisions for you and on your behalf. And sometimes maybe hemi true and good or right. But most times we have no idea what you're thinking and what is good for you. Me go past the other day and a group of young people, me go for buying lunch. And a group of young people, 4 or 5 of them, I'll go ahead story. Just as an example of how disconnected I am. And time I'll get story, and I'll get love. Some fall get story, mau talk pisin no mo eh. Some fall story, me minim. But some word I use him, I mino hear him before too, man. And so it just shows me buy him lunch, me come back, truck for come back up to office, me thinking, man, if that's the level of communication between young people themselves, between young people and my generation and those of us who are now in leadership, him even murky more, even grey more. We don't understand as we ought to what the youth are thinking and what they are seeing, and therefore how those should be responded to or facilitated. So this one, important something here that young people must engage, must be a critical part of solutions and answers. Now, also me tell them first time, one of the modalities of engagement is me encouraging young people to join political parties. And I'm very happy that you guys are driving the Young Democrats. This must be a good platform for influencing the formal government structure. Now, not just some young Democrats or some young people and then to be ignored there again. No more. Become members of the party. Engage in party processes, because party, him for policy identification here, then him processing policy here in its internal processes, and then him finally end up with a policy document. Then time you meet inside government, him harmonize with him other political parties. Then him become government policy, no longer party policy, him become government policy. Then government policy, him come to floor of parliament in the form of bills, so that law him give effect to ministries implement. That's the process of governance below you me. But if you're outside of it, by you may protest, you may riot, maybe you may do all sorts of things, but him unlikely to have maximum impact on the policy process and the legislative process. So I encourage young people, no hold back, no thinking for me while I get ball head no more inside logot party, no more. Get involved, engage, and sensitize us to recognize your challenges, and to together you may say, okay, how do we best respond to all the challenges here? It's one very important to us.
Honourable, before me come up in my story, me lebet sit down with him few students like USP, and me take him thoughts about law, especially what now the situation will happen, issues affecting both us students. And one fellow student, I'm raised one fellow question where I'm like for me ask him directly you. Student say Honourable, I understand him that I'm talking about the scholarship I'm limited, so scholarship plus C no him increase, USP him no increase, but students say him find him hard for buy him na feeble him. So somehow I'm come hard, but I'm going to take him scholarship plus C no ne, but I'm taking course where by him no passion blame, just for the sake of securing job no me. And that one I'm looking also him kill him dream blame, and it could be kill him dream blow another 100 student me, or another 200 or stuck a student me. Time ota forced to take him up another program because ota no got sponsor of another institution.
Yeah. So right now in current situation, circumstances and government policy, unfortunately, that is a reality. So my encouragement to him and to many others, I'm sure many others are in that similar kind of situation, is to take the long-term view. There are many ways to skin a cat. There are many roads to the same objective. And so, hemi no look him also once he graduate lo senior, and even if him go walk along that new area where him no bar of interest lo him, that is the end of his dream of going to that bar of area lo passion lo him. He can still maintain that passion and still find a way. Him just take a little bit longer, unfortunately. In the meantime, maybe him married and got him picnic and also by him, these are challenges. But he must take the long-term view and not give up quickly. Many of us have been through this, and things don't just align and fall all same you me like him, unfortunately. For some people, they have it so easy, and it does fall for them. But for many of us, hemi difficult. Me too, me come through difficult road too, yeah. Me no baro kasim dream. No, but this time, me no kasim dream lo me too, yeah. Mami go for number 10 na, yeah, coloris na, but dream lo me no kasim too. So yeah, take the long-term view. Don't be discouraged. Keep it as a passion and see what you're doing now as a means to where you're going.
Yeah, as we may understand, music is one of a big growing industry this time, Solomon. And have also a pride block country too. Yeah. We have young people like, Jaro Local and others were been winning awards in the name of Solomon Islands. But as me understanding that issues blow the artist and musician lo country him also him lo there too, and me no look him like any way out for help for address him whatnot. Think blue and vision blue for music industry lo some islands.
Yes, so this and art are also two. Yes, so these are two important components also in the Youth Summit to really explore. First, the scope of it, and then what response we should take to it. Firstly, settler legislation, for example, indigenous knowledge, copyright, trademark laws to be updated so that you compose some song blow you get royalties if other people are using it internationally or here. We don't at the moment. The regime for that is extremely weak. Just on Sunday, some of the young people sing lo mi follow church. And man, time me herem meeting say Shane and Shane ogat lo America that ogat no or even this one long about lo Sydney City Alight no more Hillsong song baro tune baro Hillsong, and the words were just gospel focused, beautiful worship song. And then afterwards me go ask him out, ay song bro huna iwa singing me, ay bro mi val. Me say yeah, okay bro ival, but who now write him? Me val now write him. Me part of surprise for good here that our young people are composing really meaningful lyrics, words that are really good. Not just puputung word for make him tune him hair good. No more tune bara hair nice, and the words are so profound and deep. And the next question that came, hey, you must copyright him here. Because if Hillsong herem by him copy him make selen lo him by you miss out mona. So obviously these are areas where you may need him laws to protect our young people so that they benefit from intellectual property, law at compositions, law at both law art, because we have a lot of artists, but also in terms of our music. The other thing with art is, and every time we go along go by lunch lo down art gallery, me look him stuck a lot artists blow me put my paintings lo outside, and also we need to know more to nurture this talent in our community. In other countries, artists are some of the most successful and even wealthy people. And lo here, if you manu artist, also people ignore you, no important part lo economy blow me. We need to look at how do we encourage and nurture that talent and how do we expose them internationally to, some real markets that appreciate that art. Maybe you, me locally, no bar would truly appreciate him, and therefore we don't place an economic value on it. But that in itself should not be used for stamp down and ignore them or neglect them, our artists. So again, these are areas for this fellow youth summit. So the youth summit will be fairly open. And before that, before that, you need to consult across a number of these areas and groups and see what components now summit should deal with him, the kind of facilitators and speakers you may need him, and then what processes beyond that make him. We really do benefit from it. It's just not just a talk fest. You may come talk finish, okay, good, then go back, then finish. But that end up with some key policies and laws going forward and money. Everything come down to selling it. That we find the money to nurture these ideas.
One fella look at the reality where me looking happen this country blaming is me looking couple of times me walk about late night. Mr. Sapros me looking at picking around 8 years old, 12 years old, or around the town it. Him some that there's a bigger problem within our homes there. And most of the time, him no become issues where we discuss on national level, but him issues welfare blood picking in, small picking in. That meeting him that time you come into power, or so you need for look to social welfare blood government. For make sure picking in must stay good at house too, because time out go out to end up by looking at the influence of alcohol and any kind of no good something by spoil out picking. This time we saw look at picking in like 13 years old, but other than for lot road kukum area na.
Yeah, this one full area. I think the churches, government must work with the churches, of course. Government no immune from it. Government has a responsibility to its citizenry, but churches have the primary responsibility for spiritual and discipleship inside Longo communities, especially in the families. And the focus on the families must become number one. And government must partner with the churches, but government must not take over the role of the churches. So it will be important for that conversation to happen, for the churches to say, where now get need that support, what now get the weaknesses, and I would like to challenge the churches. I think the churches have become a little stagnant, and the churches are too focused on their own liturgical processes and systems and also. And so that, the way church operates is, okay, you come on Sabbath or you come on Sunday and you sing and you hear him word the master, and then you go back and then that's it. And maybe there's a midweek meeting in the church, or maybe early morning masses or whatever. But it doesn't go outside the boundaries of the church building or the church compound. And it doesn't go into the family. And it does not impact how the parents are raising up their kids. So a focus on the family will force that issue. How now the parents raise him or picnic? What now churches like him to be base minimum that parents must impart him discipline and learning lolketa, picnic lolketa. Those are things that churches now got in primary responsibility to him. But those are things that the government has a keen interest to make sure him happen, so that it produces the kinds of kids where you may like him. Disciplined, respectful, stop house, no go play karage, go sport, come back, stop house, go to school also, and become productive in later life.
Yeah, time you mentioned about family and me relation that about him cultural side values, and is there any thing part of policy where like currently Maleta been piloting cultural education in schools in Maleta, and so is there any visioning of policy where part if you come in?
We have had a long-term policy we give him recognition, law, traditional leadership. Of course, now we refer to them as traditional governance. We also acknowledge that him not straightforward on two fronts. One, Yumi Garem, there's a diversity of ethnicities and the cultures that go with it. So let's acknowledge that. And so there is no one-size-fits-all solution that you may apply in law everyone right across the country. So that is a challenge in itself. It's not a problem, but it's a challenge. The second is that even inside long traditional leadership, inside law traditional governance, corruption goes spoilem too. Head law tribe, takem royalties law mining or royalties law logging, em ravem nomo gat sista an baratablaem. Hem selev nomo go baim tarake o kam silip lo hotel lo honeara o dui meni kain da daranga nomo itimo. Tekem royalty lo wata spoilem nomo. O em salem land lo tribe without tribes have spoilem selene too. We all witness these kinds of problems, and so there needs to be a greater, I think, community coalescing or coming around those issues and saying, we're a tribal community. There are some parts of the country that are not tribal, but mostly we are a tribal community. And what makes a functional tribal community? And how does that leadership in the custom hemi look? And how do we safeguard it? Now, you will remember a few years ago, on Fala, I think it was 2017 or 18, traditional governance bill hemi come. Hemi important ting yellow this for legislation. Now, me Fala, at the time, me chairman of Bills Committee, me recommend him that the government withdraw and go study him good more, because there were some weaknesses in that proposal where hemi propose him was a one-size-fits-all. That this will bill him apply lo Tikopia, also lo Malaita, also lo Makira, also Walkana, also lo Shortland, also. But some places chief system is strong, some places paranormal. So you impose him one val system no more, by him destroy him what is on the ground right now. So I'll go study him good more and do some anthropology around the social systems. You must not repeat him that one. Because the area of custom, him remain custom until you make him law. Once him become codified in law, it is no longer custom, it is law. And law by no change. Custom sometimes have changed. I'm a little bit flexible on the edges. Yeah? But once him become law, and you flexible them, no more you break him law. Yeah? And so we must look at what kind of law now, by him flexible enough for recognizing the diversity in our country. Bar of an important area. But I think the two areas where bar of important, this one is one now, of course, land. I've got like chiefs must get empower to make decisions with regards to land and usage rights, and I've got something also. That's very good. And it ought to be done. There was the proposal of tribal lands bill. Again, me will ask that it be withdrawn, because in that proposal, this fella tribal land panel, by him change him now local court and CLAC, and once him decide him matter land issue, for example, then you cannot appeal go molo any court, go to high court or appeals court, no more now. Now we also know from recent history that even some fellow chiefs blame it or corrupt them all get to you. Not all the chiefs, but some fella. And so if you cannot appeal him a determination from a tribal lands panel and they become corrupted, by him cause him social strife more. People say that no anywhere more for appeal, so get end up fight over land there. And so me will ask, withdraw first time bill here and go study him good more. So we want to strengthen chiefs and traditional leaders to resolve issues low land, but in a way where corruption him not taint him. Because once corruption taint him land, you may big problem, because we are a people of the land. Our tribal communities are in and based in the land. Connection blue me hemi barav strong. The other is decision making in terms of community. In many communities, that's not a traditional chief, but an elected or appointed person within the community. Again, we want them to have some authority for keeping discipline and order in communities. I think that might be easier achieved because I'm not crossing any customary boundaries, both through policing, community policing, but also through traditional governance mechanisms. And whether these are legislations that ought to be at the national level or at the provincial level, I think is a question worthy of consideration, because the province is closer to the customs and cultures in that province. And so perhaps at national level, for empowering provincial government to be able to then enact ordinances whereby deal with situations on the ground in their province, and to offer them the support, technical support, to be able to do that. So these are some considerations for Ting Ting Lohem. Thirdly, as a general direction, if you may look at Forest Utilization Act, law where you may take him, forest where stand law land blue, technically no forest blue, and forest block money. You may pay royalty blue because grow lo land blue, and by you may access digim road lo land blue for go harvest them that one and send them to China. And so we pay you royalty. Same weight in minerals under the ground, 6 meters and below, or 6 feet or something. State, logamane. You antapia no more, so you may pay no more for bulldozer digim road go land blue, then you may digim land blue, yeah? But underneath 6 meters, lo everyone, lo government on behalf of everyone. We need to have a conversation around this, where you may empower landowners to say, no more forest here, lo landowner. And mineral here too, lo landowner. And we need to set up mechanisms in place to empower the landowners, and not just for now or manhemi garem firstborn rights, yeah? But that the entire tribal community are beneficiaries through their trusteeship. Again, those are matters for legislative responses. Young people must engage. Yeah? We're talking about your resources now, yeah? While logging secondary and tertiary logging now, but mining, you may no barava exploiting it. Yes, so the benefits that we would get from mining, for example, if you meet daranga lohem no more sisiliplo hotel lohem no more baim taxi lohem time taxi breakdown, what selen you may take him from mining, finish there now, no more stuck a logger leaders blame do dim logging. But logging by him rain for the next 30 years, by Savala Aqua grow more, so you miss a logging more. But if you do him that one with him mining, time taxi breakdown, my full mining revenue ba go now. So we're proposing that income from non-renewable resources and by him go into a sovereign wealth fund for future generations. That sovereign wealth fund, by him no inside law annual budget, law government for spending. By him ring fenced, it will be invested, it must make money for future generations, and that money it makes comes through in the national budget as the profits or interest. And that goes to education and health for young people. So you may borrow ring fence him now, the income generated from our non-renewable resources.
Election leader, it's young people, to be honest, what I see down offense, no man. See no offense because others just tied no more vote or no looking any change. Others just tied no because I feel that others no longer part block country too. No longer in terms of decision making, no longer in terms of outcome of decision that have been made by the national leaders. What now advice for the young people? Election come up, staka influence bakame, but young people need him advice that what about saya too that self accountability really important in the sense that values are important too for look for not a vote for. Not any influence come. Young people decide what I need him advice and the right direction. Information come everywhere. For interpreting him a little bit hard something to and for stand against him. So what now general advice for the young people where like looking change, young people where sit down offense this time too. Because me like looking election, young people launch a and go vote. Young people look up money, stand up from house blame and walk about gonna. Have no any candidate na kam tritan stop at the laws Aaron kami said bila look election where young people take ownership, recognizing their responsibility, and not in a way that one for all man say also you sell them, you know me. Yeah. So what na advice lagi not the young people?
Yeah, so firstly, I would say this election, election blow for young people na. Take charge, take ownership of it, make it yours. It calls for a little bit of organization. If it is possible, you will organize so that young people can vote with same thinking and looking for the same kind of criteria in the candidates you're looking for. But if it is not organized, young people rise up and vote for the change you like looking. If you like him change, you go night, you go for sleep, you think him change, you wake up in the morning, you think him change, but then you go voting one old idiot no more. Well, that's the change you deserve. What you vote for is the change you deserve. That is my advice to you. So vote the right person where you think him barawa. Fit him now. Kind vision also me outline him lo youthful this morning. This is about vision blow you me, lo Solomons Democratic Party. I hope hemi inspire young people to join us. Take ownership of the election and vote for the Solomons Democratic Party candidate. Because then you become part of him and engage in the conversation, even after election, even through the next 4 years, be part of the conversation. Solomons Democratic makes the commitment that by him no pass him extension of parliament or get kind constitutional changes or without consulting young people and the nation. We want to be, when we're in government, God willing and people willing, a government that is responsive and respond to concerns of the people. A government where he is responsible and deal with significant matters, him embracing people, him not marginalizing people, not pushing people for cross all way. That's how government should be. And so we want young people to own that government. The way to own it is you vote for Solomons Democratic Party candidate. Make sure Solomons Democratic Party winning more seats, many seats, make him holem government. And then engage in it, become part of him, influence it, hold it accountable to these high values and ideals where you may stand for him.
Yeah, you said that America is an American dream. Yeah? What would be Solomons' dream for a young person? Solomon?
I think that for young people in this country, we're a country full of promise, but unrealized promise. So the promise of Solomon Islands is a promise of prosperity. I think young people can carve out that promise themselves. You prosper in the work that you do. You prosper in being creative, the passion that you have. You prosper if you're starting your own business. You prosper if your work is in supporting the community. But you prosper in what you do. That's the Solomon Island dream. In terms of resources, Block Country, we are highly mineralized. We sit on the same seabed as Bougainville and New Guinea. We're highly mineralized. And in some ways, we thank God that that has not been exploited, because if it exploited up to now, every crook money spoil him, steal him, every sell him, But we want to see a Solomons Democratic Party government that's led to then begin to do the right thing and be responsible. So that resource is to empower the prosperity we talk about for our young people. So that in 30 years' time, people look back and say, there was a turning. We turned it. And we were part of owning that turning. Take ownership of it.
Thank you so much, leader, for giving time for young Dems, youth wing blow big parties, Solomon Democratic Party, for come and talk with you, discussing about the issues of actually young people. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.